Good morning, students. That was absolutely magnificent, absolutely breathtaking. I could not be happier to be serving you this morning. I was delighted when they told me what path you were on for chapel so that I could just pick up where they were, and they assigned me Psalm 139, which you've already helped us read in the responsive reading. So it's my great joy to bring this masterpiece on the page to you. The title of my message this morning is In Search of the Searching God. And I think it is possible, and many scholars believe that perhaps the key to understanding the conditions under which the psalmist wrote these words, of course, under the inspiration of the Spirit, that particular condition is hinted toward at the end of the psalm instead of the beginning. So I'll read the last couple of verses before I read the first one. But before I do, a couple of questions to get us in the right frame of mind, and I love audience participation. So if you'd be ready for a little bit of that, we'll do it a couple of times during this message. When was the last time that you were falsely accused of something? Didn't have to be big and public. Maybe you just overheard somehow that someone had questioned your character in some way, discovered that they had said something about you, and perhaps it was someone you had never met, and you thought to yourself, "You do not even know me. I don't know how you could say that particular thing about me, because 100 other things would be dead on. But it just so happens the one you chose is not true about me." The psalmist ends the verses in the 139th Psalm with these words, 23 and 24. "Search me, God, and know my heart. Test me and know my concern. See if there is any offensive way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting." I'm reading out of the CSB this morning, but that word offensive is footnoted in my particular translation, and it's directly translated in some of yours, is a word that also means idolatrous. There's every possibility that the psalmist, it's attributed to David, had been accused of idolatry for some reason and in some way. And he's basically saying in his plea before God, they do not know me, but you do know me. You do know me. And so with that in mind, if that is the occasion, and it's quite possible that it is, then it makes perfect sense that the ink hits the page with words like these. "Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know when I sit down and when I stand up. You understand my thoughts from afar. You observe my travels and my rest. You are aware of all my ways before a word is on my tongue. You know all about it, Lord. You have encircled me. You've placed your hand on me. This wondrous knowledge is beyond me. It is lofty. I'm unable to reach it. Where can I go to escape your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. If I live at the eastern horizon or settle at the western limits, even there your hand will lead me. Your right hand will hold on to me. And if I say, surely the darkness will hide me, the light will be my night. Even in the darkness, it is not dark to you. The night shines like the day. Darkness and light are alike to you. The key word, obviously, in the psalm is know. That word is used 6 times as you hear it here, and then a 7th time in the translating of knowledge. It is key to the psalm. And so I want to throw you out a few more questions, and I actually would love to see you raise your hands on this one wherever your answer might be. I'm wondering how many people living on planet Earth at this time you would say really know you. And I'm asking you about the real you this morning. How many people, I'm going to throw some numbers out at you so that you can help me identify, help me estimate what you would believe to be the number of people that you would say, now they really know me, the real me, not the promotional you, not the transactional you, not the social media you. God help us, not the lovely curated Instagram you, not the performing you, not the disappearing Snapchat you. And here's something else I want to say, not just the worst of you. Some people know the worst of us. Well, that's still not the real you. Some people know the best of you. That's still not the real you. I'm asking you, who knows the success and failure you? Anybody tracking with that this morning? The real one, the fun one, who is also the boring one. Those kinds of dimensions of you. The real you. So how many of you would say, I would estimate that over 30 people on the planet know the real me? Could I see your hands in the air? Interesting thought, isn't it? If you would say, I believe it is probably closer to 20, I would tell you that 20 people in the world really know the real me. Could I see your hand on that? A few more. And so what if I said 10? 10 people in the world know the real me. Who could raise their hand on that? And then it would be, how about just maybe 5? And I don't mind saying that 5 would be pushing it. Could I see your hands on that? Some of you didn't know we were coming up with the 5. You chose it and 10. Because you know somewhere between the two of them, you have pegged an approximation of the people that really know you. And here is the thing. There is nothing we long for and nothing we fear more than being known, and I do mean fully known. And our horrible fear is that someone who really knows us might not love us. And there are those of us who never venture out into that at all. There are others that are so fearful that you might not like them if you didn't know the real them, that they will tell you all their dirt the first 30 minutes you meet them. Do you know somebody like that? Like you just met them in the cafeteria. You just were standing in the Starbucks line with them. Like you don't know these people, or maybe you're just meeting up with them for the first time at a party, and they tell you all this stuff, and then they're staring at you like, now what are you going to do with it? And you know the answer is, I'm going to run for my life. That's what I'm going to do with that, because it's disturbing. But there's something in us that goes, I need to know as fast as possible if you're going to love the real me. And the vulnerability involved in being truly known is more than most of us are often willing to risk, and that was identified to us this morning by how few people we would honestly say really know us. One reason is because we've tested this before and it did not turn out well. Who is someone to whom you laid your soul bare and they betrayed you? One of the things I love about these passages, and I love about knowing that God is on to us and He sees our hearts and He can read our motives and our attitudes, is right here in the 139th Psalm when it says in verse 12, even the darkness is not dark to you, the night shines like the day, darkness and light are alike to you. And we find out about God in the scriptures that He is light and in Him is no darkness. I come from a very, very troubled family upbringing, a very unstable home, a lot of darkness. So I get this. And so one of the most encouraging things to me in the entire Word of God is knowing that God has no dark side. None. Nothing about Him that is untrustworthy with our innermost selves, with what is laid bare before him. He explores, but he is not an exploiting God. His light ministers to our dark sides, our hiddenness, our hatefulness, our offensiveness, our anxiousness. One of the things I love most about this knowing God in Psalm 139 is that it does not just stop with he is a knowing God, but it tells us that he is the searching God. You have searched me and you have known me. What's more significant is that he's searching something he already knows. That he would care to search you, having already known exactly what he was going to find, because he reserves the right to not rob himself of the delight of looking in order to find. That he searches us. You might say he was the first one to originate research, because every single time he searches you, and he will do that over and over again in the course of a day, of a week, of a lifetime, doing it again and again and again and again. I wonder how many people in this room are like me, that you love research. I love it. I live for it. I want that part of the search. Romans 8:27 says, and he who searches our hearts knows the mind of the Spirit. So he's ever searching our hearts, making intercession for us according to the will of God. But listen to what it says only a few verses later, after we're told in Romans 8 that he searches our hearts. It goes on to say, and what shall we say about these things? If God is for us, who can be against us? What kind of God searches the whole thing out and he is still for us? I mean, it knows the real us, the actual us, the 3 a.m. us in the dead dark of night. And this is the God who is for us. 2 verses later, who will bring any charge against God's elect? It is God who justifies. Looking all the way down to the most intimate parts of our hearts and mind. I told you that I love research. I love the description of the promised land in Deuteronomy chapter 8. Moses tells them that they'll lack absolutely nothing, that it will be a land of wheat and barley and vines and figs, pomegranates and olives and honey. And he says this, and I don't know if this sounds like anything special to anyone else, but it's always stuck out to me in this particular passage. It says, it will be a land where you can dig copper out of the hills. I love that thought. I love that thought. I want my land of promise to be something I have to dig up. I don't know about you. We're all made differently. We have different learning styles. But the thrill to me is not just the teaching of the passage. It was studying the passage to teach it. It's looking for what is hidden and can be found, but can only be found to the seeker. Because I don't want my copper laying out on the hill. I don't want it in the grass. I was born with a spade in my hand. I want to dig it up. I want to dig it up. And I don't know if that happens to be you as well. I wanted you to know this morning that you inherited that from your Maker, who is a searcher, although he's already a knower, just because he loves the search and not just the knowing. Jesus said, seek and you shall find. Not see, not just see and you'll find. It will be laying right out there in the grass. No, he said, seek and you will find. Pursue it. We're told that he understands our thoughts, knows a word before it is on our tongues. So he really does know when we didn't mean it the way we said it. And he also knows when we mean worse than how we said it. He knows when we are truly misunderstood and when they have pegged us to a T. 12 through 18. Even the darkness is not dark to you. The night shines like the day. Darkness and light are alike to you. For it was you who created my inward parts. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I will praise you because I have been remarkably and wondrously made. Your works are wonderful, and I know this very well. I wonder if you do. My bones were not hidden from you when I was made in secret, when I was formed in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw me when I was formless. All my days were written in your book and planned before a single one of them began. God, how precious are your thoughts to me. How vast their sum. If I counted them, they would outnumber the grains of the sand. And when I wake up, I am still with you. The genre and the dating of Psalm 139 are notoriously hard to pinpoint, but the themes are not. You know them. Our automatic answer to the particular value of Psalm 139 is its attribution of omniscience, of omnipresence, of omnipotence to the divine. But I want to remind you that it is the context of it that makes those attributes so astounding. It is because we are seeing the limitlessness of God applied to the singular life. And not only the singular life, but that which is most singular, most intimately hidden within the life. It's the biggest to the smallest. It's the mountainous miracle to the microscopic. This intimate knowledge and searching and grasping and holding were not based on the worthiness or excellencies of the Psalter, even if it was David, a man after God's own heart. Jeremiah said something similar. You knew me before I was born. In Galatians, the Apostle Paul says something similar. You called me and set me apart before I was born. Places like 1 Peter and Ephesians 1 tell us that all of us were foreknown in Christ before time, and that even, according to Ephesians 2:10, our works were already known. Then it goes beyond those that would come to know him to every creature under heaven in Hebrews, where it says in 4:13 that every single creature is laid bare before him. You know, with all the medical advancement in pregnancy testing, it is still true that there is a period of time, however brief it may seem, in the amount of days, that only God knows you have been conceived. That he reserves that right, just him. He is the only one that knows that you will be. Searches out, all by himself, the secret that he has tucked this life in this body. Verses 15 and 16, listen to them again. My bones were not hidden from you when I was made in secret, formed in the depths of the earth. Your eyes saw me when I was formless, and all the days were written in your book and planned before a single one of them came into being. Also, where it talks about the Spirit of God, there's nowhere I can flee from your Spirit. It has a little bit of a Genesis 1 kind of feel to it. The Spirit creating and fashioning the formlessness into something that is so wondrously made that it defies imagination. And thinking that it was not just light to which he said, let there be, but there was you. And there was me. And if you have in mind to make a life out of mourning your insignificance, you will want to avoid this psalm. My bones were not hidden from you. You were born with somewhere around 270 bones in your body, some of which fused together into what would now be full grown for you at about 206 bones. Medical science has just scratched the surface of understanding what goes on in the human brain. It is so complex with 100 billion nerve cells. Next to the brain, the most complex thing in your body is your set of eyes, which works much like a camera, only the best camera available commercially is at about 150 megapixels, costs about $50,000, and your human eye takes a picture at 576 megapixels. Human heart begins beating at about 22 days after conception, and that heart, your heart, in an average lifetime will pump 1 million barrels of blood. So he ends the psalm by saying, so search me and know me. But I want to ask you a question. Is it just a comfort to be searched and known by God if we are innocent? Because that's a scary thought. Because most of the time, I'm not going to be. Maybe you will be. But maybe a lot of times, what I'd be accused of might be true. Or if you kept a record, Psalm 130 says, who could stand? But with you there is forgiveness, so we can with reverence serve you. The Apostle Peter would say to the resurrected Christ who asked him if he loved him, Lord, you know everything. You know that I love you. And don't you know something like this might have been going on in the mind of Jesus? Yes, and I know your every contradiction, your every fear, your every weakness. I have searched you, and I have known you, and I also know you are a man who wants to follow me with everything you have. Jesus Christ, our alibi in our innocence, our advocate in our plea for help, our atonement and our guilt. So thorough is God's commitment to the gospel that for those of us who trust in him, even the bad news, which is I can't get away from him, nor can I hide from him, turns out to be the good news. So where do we take this from here? What shall we do with this knowing and searching God? Give way to the search. You who were fearfully and wonderfully made were created to search him back. Did you know that a tremendously brilliant young man by the name of Alan Emtage is credited with creating the very first search engine, and because it searched archives, he named it Archie. I love that. The grandfather to Google. Well, way before that brilliant man, there was a God who created the very first search engine, and he named him Adam. Because we are born with a drive to seek out the things that are of God, the things that cannot be known by our human mind alone. The Apostle Paul said, I want to know Christ. John 17:3, this is life eternal, that they may know you, the only true God, and the one you have sent. That verse, interestingly, emphasizes eternal life in the experience and not just the length of time. I'll close with these words out of 1 Corinthians 13. For we know in part and prophesy in part, but when the perfect comes, the partial will pass away. When I was a child, I spoke like a child, I thought like a child, I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I gave up childish ways. For now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, then I shall know fully, as I am fully known. Then I shall know fully. As God has known me, I shall know him. And even though I will know it, even though you will know it, we will spend all of eternity searching it. Godspeed to you, students.